3 years ago, Sarah Winters was dragged before the Shadow Peak Pack and publicly rejected by Alpha Kane Blackwood, stripped of her mate bond, her pack rights, and left bleeding in the snow. Now she's back, walking through the pack house doors in a $1,000 suit with eyes that glow silver instead of gold, and every alpha in the room can feel it. She doesn't smell like prey anymore. The leather of her heels clicked against the pack house floor like a countdown. Sarah kept her breathing steady, her spine straight, though every instinct screamed at her to run. 3 years hadn't dulled the memory of this place. The massive stone walls, the mounted elk heads watching from above, the scent of cedar and dominance that saturated every corner. But she wasn't that girl anymore. The foyer fell silent as she entered. 2 wolves flanked the entrance, their eyes widening in recognition. One took a step back. The other's nostrils flared, confusion flickering across his face. "Sarah!" The question came from Marcus, Kane's beta, emerging from the great hall. His salt and pepper hair was grayer than she remembered. "That's impossible." "Is it?" She pulled off her sunglasses, meeting his stare without flinching. "I need to see Kane, about my brother." Marcus's expression shifted to something gentler. "Sarah, I'm sorry about Eli. We tried to reach you 6 months ago." Her voice came out harder than she intended. "You tried 6 months ago when it happened. I got the message last week." She'd been in Prague when the letter finally found her, forwarded through 4 different addresses. Her baby brother, dead in a hunting accident, 20 years old. The pack had buried him without her. Marcus studied her face, then her clothes, the tailored black suit, the Cartier watch, the complete absence of submission in her posture. "You've changed." "People do." "Not like this." He gestured toward the hall. "Kane's in a council meeting, but I'll get him. Wait in the—" "I'll wait wherever I choose." The words came out soft, but something in them made Marcus's wolf stir. She could see it in his eyes, that flicker of recognition that she was no longer someone he could command. He nodded slowly. "The blue room, then. I'll bring coffee." Sarah didn't want to sit in the blue room, with its memories of pack gatherings where she'd served drinks and kept her eyes down. But she followed Marcus through the familiar corridors, past the training rooms and the Alpha's study, past the photographs of pack leaders dating back 100 years. Her brother's face smiled from one of the newer frames. Eli at his first shift ceremony, barely 16, gangly and proud. The image blurred for a moment before she blinked it clear. The blue room hadn't changed. Same leather couches, same stone fireplace, same window overlooking the northern woods where she'd once dreamed of running free. She stood by that window now, watching patrol wolves move through the tree line, and refused to sit. She heard him before she saw him. The heavy footfalls, the particular rhythm of his stride. Then his scent hit her. Pine and smoke and something wild that her body still recognized despite everything. Kane Blackwood filled the doorway, 6'4" of barely contained rage wrapped in jeans and a dark Henley. His black hair was longer than before, touching his collar. His amber eyes, the eyes that had once looked at her with something she'd mistaken for love, were cold. "You have some nerve." His voice could have cut glass. "Coming back here." Sarah turned from the window but didn't move closer. "I'm here for Eli's things. That's all." "That's all?" Kane stepped into the room, and the temperature seemed to drop. 3 years of silence, and you show up demanding— "I'm not demanding anything." She kept her voice level. "I'm requesting access to my brother's belongings. I'll be gone in 48 hours. He laughed, sharp and bitter. "Just like that? You think you can just walk in here?" He stopped mid-sentence, his head tilting. His nostrils flared, confusion crossing his features. "What are you?" "Excuse me." "Your scent." "You don't smell like—" He moved closer despite himself, and Sarah fought the urge to retreat. "What happened to you?" "I survived." She met his stare. "That's what happened." Before Kane could respond, the door burst open. Lydia Monroe swept in, blonde and beautiful and deadly, her designer dress clinging to curves meant to advertise what Kane had chosen instead of Sarah. The current Luna's smile was all teeth. Well, well, the failed Omega returns. Lydia moved to Kane's side, one possessive hand on his arm. I heard rumors, but I didn't believe them. Tell me, Sarah, did you come back to beg forgiveness? Because Kane's made his choice clear. Sarah's fingers tightened on her sunglasses, but her face remained calm. I came for my brother, nothing more. Your brother? Lydia's voice dripped false sympathy. Such a tragedy. Though one has to wonder, if you'd been here, been part of the pack, maybe someone would have noticed he was taking unnecessary risks. Maybe someone would have stopped him. The words hit like claws. Sarah felt something dark unfurl in her chest, something she'd learned to control but hadn't quite mastered. The shadows in the corners of the room seemed to deepen. Lydia. Kane's voice held warning. That's enough. Is it? She abandoned him. She abandoned all of us. Lydia's eyes glittered. She has no right to come here making demands. I'm not making demands, Sarah repeated, but something in her voice had changed. Dropped. I'm collecting what's mine, then I'm leaving. You're leaving when Kane says you can leave. Lydia stepped forward, letting her alpha power roll out, the dominance game she'd always played, forcing lower wolves into submission. You're in our territory now, Omega. You follow our rules. The pressure built in the room, that particular weight of alpha command. In the old days, it would have driven Sarah to her knees. Now it felt like nothing at all. I said, Lydia's voice rose, more power flooding out. Submit. Sarah tilted her head, studying the other woman with something close to pity. Then she smiled. No. The door opened again. Marcus appeared, looking harried. Alpha, there's a situation. Garrett's challenged the patrol schedule and he's... A roar echoed from the hall. A massive red wolf burst through the doorway, shifted to human form in a blur of muscle and rage. Garrett Cross, one of the pack's more volatile alphas, stood naked and furious in the entrance. You think you can send me to the northern border like some pup? Garrett snarled at Kane. I've been in this pack 30 years. I don't take orders from you anymore, boy. Kane's power exploded outward, a crushing wave of dominance that made even Lydia stumble. Stand down, Garrett. Make me. Garrett's eyes flashed gold. Or maybe your pretty Luna wants to try? Or maybe... His gaze landed on Sarah, recognition dawning. Well, well, the failed Omega. Heard you were back. Come to see what a real alpha looks like? He moved toward her, all predator, challenge radiating from every pore. Kane shifted forward to intercept, but Garrett was faster, closing the distance until he stood inches from Sarah, his breath hot on her face. You always were too proud, little Omega. Someone should have taught you. Sarah's eyes flashed silver. The change was instant. Garrett's words choked off, his body locked, every muscle going rigid. Then, slowly, impossibly, the massive alpha began to sink to his knees. His wolf whimpered, actually whimpered, in submission. The room froze. Lydia's face went white. Marcus took an involuntary step backward. Kane stared, his own wolf rising in confused response to a power it didn't understand. Sarah looked down at Garrett, kneeling and trembling before her, and felt nothing but tired. You were saying? Garrett's voice came out broken. I'm sorry, I didn't get out. The command rippled through the room with undeniable authority. Garrett scrambled for the door, his alpha pride shattered, leaving a trail of confusion and fear in his wake. The silence that followed felt heavy enough to crush stone. Lydia found her voice first. What are you? The question came out as an accusation, but underneath was genuine fear. Sarah looked at Kane, at the man who'd rejected her, humiliated her, thrown her out of the only home she'd known. His amber eyes were wide, his carefully controlled mask cracked wide open. She could tell him. She could explain everything, where she'd gone, what she'd found, what she'd become. She could watch him realize exactly what he'd thrown away that night in the snow. Instead, she smiled, cold and sharp and nothing like the girl she used to be. I'm not an Omega anymore. Chapter 2. The Witch's Bargain. The council chamber smelled like old wood and older secrets. Sarah sat in a hard-backed chair facing 5 wolves who'd probably never been challenged in their lives, while Cain stood against the wall like a sentinel made of stone and fury. Elder Frost spoke first, his white beard trembling with barely suppressed outrage. You will explain yourself, girl. Sarah let the silence stretch. 3 years ago, that word, girl, would have made her flinch. Now it just sounded pathetic. My name is Sarah Winters, she said finally. And I'm not here to explain anything. I'm here because you invoked old law to keep me from leaving. So invoke it. Ask your questions. But don't call me girl again. Frost's face purpled. Beside him, Elder Catherine, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, held up one elegant hand. Peace, Marcus. The young woman has a point. Her gaze settled on Sarah with uncomfortable intensity. Though I confess, what we witnessed in the Blue Room defies explanation. Omegas don't command alphas. They certainly don't drop warriors like Garrett Cross to their knees with a look. Then, perhaps, Sarah said softly, your understanding of Omegas is incomplete. Or perhaps, Lydia's voice cut in from where she stood beside Cain, she's made a dark bargain, sold her soul for power she was never meant to have. Cain's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He'd barely spoken since the incident, just stared at Sarah like she was a ghost he couldn't quite believe in. Interesting theory, Sarah said. Do you have evidence or just fear? I have eyes. Lydia moved forward, her Luna authority filling the room. I saw what you did. That wasn't wolf power. That was something else, something wrong. Elder Thomas, the youngest of the 5 at 60, leaned forward. The girl, Sarah, does raise a valid question. What evidence do we have beyond an unusual display of dominance? My wolf won't go near her, Lydia snapped. My instincts scream danger. That's evidence enough. Your instincts, Sarah said, might just be recognizing that you're not the apex predator you pretend to be. The room temperature dropped. Cain finally spoke, his voice rough. Enough, both of you. He pushed off the wall, moving to stand before the council. Lydia's right that what Sarah did was impossible, but throwing around accusations of dark magic without proof isn't helpful. How protective, Sarah murmured. 3 years ago you couldn't throw me out fast enough. Now you're defending me? Cain's eyes flashed. I'm not defending you, I'm trying to get to the truth. The truth! Sarah laughed, and it hurt coming out. You want the truth, Cain? Fine. But it's going to cost you. 3 years ago, the night of the rejection. Sarah lay in the snow, bleeding from a dozen places where Lydia's claws had opened her skin. The rejection ceremony had been brutal. Cain's words severing the mate bond in front of the entire pack, then Lydia's victory lap, her dominance display that left Sarah broken on the ground. Crawl out of here, Omega, Lydia had whispered in her ear, or I'll finish what I started. So Sarah crawled. Into the woods, through the snow, past the pack boundaries. She didn't know where she was going. She just knew she had to get away before she bled out in front of them and gave Lydia that final satisfaction. The cold was a mercy. It numbed the physical pain, if not the other kind, the raw wound in her chest where the mate bond had been torn away. Every breath hurt. Every heartbeat felt like betrayal. She made it maybe a mile before she collapsed. The snow beneath her face turned red. Her wolf was silent, retreating so deep inside that Sarah wondered if she'd ever shift again. Maybe this was it. Maybe this was how she died. Alone in the woods, rejected and forgotten. Well, a voice said from somewhere above her, that's quite the mess you're in. Sarah couldn't lift her head, couldn't even speak. She just lay there, watching her blood pool and steam in the freezing air. I could help you. The voice came closer. Though help is such a relative term, isn't it? I could save your life, make you stronger than you ever imagined, give you the power to make them all regret what they did. A pause. But everything has a price, little Omega. Everything. Through blurring vision, Sarah saw a woman crouch beside her. Pale skin, dark hair, eyes that glittered like stars. Beautiful in a way that felt dangerous. Who? Sarah managed. Morgana Thorne. Though I doubt you've heard of me, your Alpha is probably too young to remember when they banished me. The woman, Morgana, tilted her head. I'm a witch, a powerful one, and I have a proposition for you. Go away. So you'd rather die here? Interesting choice. Morgana stood. Though a waste. You have something special in you, Omega. Something most wolves lost generations ago. It's faint, buried, but it's there. With the right adjustments, you could be extraordinary. Sarah's eyes were closing. The cold was winning. Last chance, Morgana said. I can save you, transform you, make you into something that will haunt every Alpha who ever made you kneel. But you'll owe me a debt, and I collect on my debts. Her voice dropped lower. Say yes, or die here in the snow. Choose. Sarah's lips moved. One word, barely a whisper. Yes. In the council chamber, Elder Catherine's eyes narrowed. You went quiet, child. Remembering something? Sarah blinked back to the present. Just thinking about how I got here. Then enlighten us, Kane said. His voice was still rough, but something else threaded through it now. Something that might have been concern if she let herself believe in such things. Where have you been? What happened to you? I died. The words came out flat. In the snow, outside Pack territory. I bled out and died, and no one came looking. Kane flinched. Actually flinched. But someone found you, Elder Catherine said. Someone brought you back. A witch. Sarah met each elder's gaze in turn. Morgana Thorne. She offered me a choice. Die, or become something new, something stronger. Morgana Thorne? Elder Frost's face went even paler. That's impossible. She was banished in 1847. She'd be ancient, powerful, dangerous. Sarah smiled without humor. All of the above. She found me dying and offered a bargain. She would transform me into what she called an apex, a wolf with alpha strength, omega instincts, and witch magic woven through it all. I'd become a natural predator of alphas, someone who could hunt them as easily as they've always hunted omegas. That's abomination, Lydia breathed. That's what saved my life, Sarah cut in. The price was simple. I help her hunt down the supernatural trafficking ring that's been kidnapping omega wolves for decades. The one that sells them to vampire covens, demon lords, anyone with enough money and no conscience. The silence that followed was absolute. Elder Thomas broke it first. Trafficking rings? That's legend, rumor. It's real. Sarah's voice went cold. And it took my brother. Kane stepped forward. What are you talking about? Eli died in a hunting accident. No. Sarah reached into her jacket, pulled out a flash drive. He died investigating the ring. He'd found evidence, connections, names. He was going to bring it to you, Kane, to the council. Someone stopped him before he could. She tossed the drive onto the council table. It landed with a plastic click that sounded like a gunshot. Eli wasn't the first Omega to disappear from Shadow Peak territory, Sarah continued. Over the last 5 years, 12 have gone missing. 12. All young, all vulnerable, all written off as runaways or accidents. But Eli started putting the pieces together. He realized someone inside the pack was facilitating the disappearances. Someone with access, authority, information. Elder Catherine picked up the drive with trembling fingers. You're saying someone in our pack. I'm saying someone in leadership is dirty. Sarah stood, her chair scraping back. And I'm saying Eli died because he figured out who. Kane's face had gone marble still. You have proof? On that drive, bank records, email chains, surveillance footage, 3 years' worth of investigation. Sarah's voice didn't waver. Morgana taught me how to hunt, how to track, how to become invisible when I needed to be. We've dismantled trafficking operations in 7 territories. Shadow Peak was supposed to be the last one, the crown jewel. Then why come back now? Lydia demanded. Why not just, because they killed my brother? The words came out raw. Because I spent 6 months thinking he died in an accident, when really someone murdered him to keep him quiet. Because I'm done being subtle and patient. Sarah's eyes flashed silver. I came back to finish what Eli started. Elder Frost's hands shook as he reached for the drive. If this is true, if there's corruption at that level. The pack is compromised, Elder Catherine finished softly. We can't trust our own leadership. All eyes turned to Kane. The Alpha stood frozen, his face unreadable. His wolf clearly raging beneath the surface. Let me see it, he said finally. Elder Catherine handed him the drive. Kane pulled out a laptop, plugged it in, and opened the files. The room fell silent except for the quiet click of keys and his increasingly harsh breathing. Sarah watched him read, watched the disbelief turn to horror, turn to rage. She knew what he was seeing: financial transactions routed through shell companies, emails discussing merchandise and deliveries, surveillance footage of pack vehicles at known trafficking hubs, and names, so many names. This can't be real, Kane whispered, but his face said he knew it was. Third folder down, Sarah said quietly. Eli's investigation notes. He documented everything. Kane opened the folder, started reading, then stopped, his entire body going rigid. What? Lydia moved to look over his shoulder. What does it... She stopped mid-sentence, her face draining of color. Sarah smiled, sharp and bitter. Found it, did you? The connection you weren't expecting? Kane's amber eyes lifted to meet hers, and in them she saw something break. Lydia's brother, Marcus Monroe, he's... the ringleader, Sarah finished. At least the one running operations in this territory. Eli traced everything back to him, which means... She shifted her gaze to Lydia. You either knew and helped cover it up, or you're the most oblivious Luna in pack history. That's a lie. But Lydia's voice shook. My brother would never... Your brother has $15 million in offshore accounts, Sarah said. Your brother owns 3 properties in territories known for trafficking. Your brother's phone records show regular contact with known traffickers. She paused. Want me to keep going? Kane was still staring at the screen, his fingers white-knuckled on the laptop edge. Eli's last note says he was going to confront Marcus, the night before he died. Convenient timing, Sarah said softly. No. Lydia backed away. No, this is fake. You fabricated this to what? Sarah's voice cut like a blade. To come back here and destroy my own reputation? To paint a target on my back? Be smarter, Lydia. If I wanted revenge, I'd have just killed everyone involved and disappeared. I came back because I want justice. For Eli, for every Omega your brother sold. Elder Thomas stood abruptly. We need to bring Marcus Monroe in for questioning, immediately. He's not here, Kane said, his voice hollow. He left this morning, said he had business in the Eastern Territory. How convenient, Sarah murmured. We'll send trackers, Elder Frost said. Bring him back. He's already gone. Sarah crossed her arms. Morgana's been watching him for weeks. The moment I entered pack territory, he ran. He's probably 3 states away by now, erasing evidence as he goes. Then we hunt him down, Kane said, and his alpha power flooded the room. Pure rage barely contained. We find him, we bring him back, and we make him answer for every Omega he touched. Lovely speech. Sarah's eyes flashed silver again. But you're forgetting something, Alpha. Your mate's brother is a murderer and a slaver, which means your mate is compromised, which means your pack is compromised, which means... She leaned forward. You can't trust anyone in this room. The elders shifted uneasily. Lydia's face had gone from pale to flushed, her hands clenched into fists. I didn't know, Lydia said. I swear, Kane, I didn't know what Marcus was doing. Maybe. Sarah's voice was almost gentle. Or maybe you just didn't want to see it. Either way, you're a liability now. Every decision you've made, every person you've trusted, all of it's suspect. Kane looked between them. His mate and his former mate, the Luna and the ghost. Something in his expression cracked wider. What do you want, Sarah? He asked quietly. Why bring this to us instead of just handling it yourself? Because Eli deserved better than a revenge killing. Sarah straightened. He deserved justice, pack justice, for pack crimes. She pulled out a piece of paper, unfolded it, and laid it on the table. This is a list of everyone Morgana and I have identified as part of the trafficking ring. Some are in Shadow Peak, some are scattered across 3 territories. All of them need to be brought in alive. Why alive? Elder Catherine asked. Because they have information, names, locations, buyers. Sarah's voice went cold. There are still Omegas out there, still being held. If we kill the traffickers, we lose the trail. If we capture them, we save lives. Kane studied the list, his jaw working. This is extensive. It's a network, Sarah said. One that's been operating for decades. Eli stumbled onto a fraction of it and died for his trouble. I've spent 3 years mapping the whole thing. She met Kane's eyes. I can dismantle it, but I can't do it alone, not this part. Not in Shadow Peak territory. You want pack support, Elder Thomas said slowly. I want permission to hunt on pack lands. I want your trackers, your resources, your authority. Sarah's smile was sharp. And in exchange, I'll give you every name, every location, every piece of evidence we've gathered. You'll be heroes, the pack that brought down a supernatural trafficking empire. Or, Lydia said bitterly, we'll be the pack that got played by a witch's puppet. Sarah turned to her slowly. You really want to go there? Right now? When your brother's name is all over the evidence? When your entire position is hanging by a thread? Ladies. Kane's voice cracked like a whip. Enough. He looked at the elders. We need to vote, officially. Do we accept Sarah's offer or do we handle this internally? Handle it internally? Sarah laughed. Kane, your beta is probably in on it. Your Luna's brother definitely is. How exactly do you plan to handle this internally without tipping off every conspirator in the pack? Kane's expression darkened, but he didn't argue. Because she was right. They both knew it. Elder Catherine stood. I vote yes. We accept Sarah's help. This is bigger than pack pride. Seconded, Elder Thomas said. Thirded, added Elder Margaret, who'd been silent until now. Elder Frost hesitated, then nodded. Agreed, though we'll need assurances. You'll get your assurances, Sarah cut in. Morgana and I will report to the council directly. No one else sees the evidence until we've secured all the suspects. That includes you, Kane. His eyes flashed. I'm the alpha. You're compromised. Sarah's voice was gentle but firm. Your mate's family is involved. You can't be objective. You know it, I know it, everyone in this room knows it. For a long moment, Kane just stared at her. Then, slowly, he nodded. Fine, you report to the council. But Sarah... His voice dropped. If you're lying, if this is some elaborate revenge scheme, then you can kill me yourself. She smiled without warmth. Just like you should have 3 years ago. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with all the things they'd never said, all the damage that couldn't be undone. Elder Catherine cleared her throat. Then it's settled. Sarah Winters, you have the council's permission to hunt on Shadow Peak lands. Use whatever resources you need. Her gaze hardened. But understand this. If you abuse this authority, if you harm innocents, we will end you. Apex or not. Understood. Sarah picked up the flash drive. Tucked it away. I'll need a secure location to work from, somewhere off the main compound. The old gamekeeper's cottage, Elder Thomas suggested. It's isolated, defensible. Perfect. Sarah moved toward the door, then paused, looked back at Cain, at Lydia, at the elders sitting in judgment. One more thing. Eli's funeral. I want to see where you buried him. Cain's throat worked. Tomorrow, I'll take you myself. No. Sarah's voice was final. Send Marcus. You're Beta Marcus, not the other one. I want someone I can trust. Something flickered in Cain's eyes. Hurt, maybe, or recognition of just how far they'd fallen. But he nodded. Sarah turned to leave. Got 3 steps before Cain's voice stopped her. Sarah, the mate bond. Do you still feel it? She looked back over her shoulder, her expression unreadable. Every day. Every hour. Every time my heart beats, I feel the hole where it used to be. Her smile was devastating. You wanted me gone, Cain. You got your wish. Don't ask me to bleed for you now. Then she was gone, the door closing behind her with quiet finality. In the silence that followed, Lydia whispered, "What have we done?" Cain didn't answer. He just stared at the closed door, his wolf howling in his chest, and wondered the same thing. Outside, Sarah leaned against the stone wall and let herself shake, just for a moment, just long enough to remember how to breathe. Then her phone buzzed. A text from Morgana. Is it done? Sarah typed back. They took the bait. We're in. The response came immediately. Good, because Marcus Monroe just crossed into neutral territory. And he's not alone. 3 wolves with him, all armed. Sarah's jaw tightened. She pushed off the wall, started walking toward the cottage Elder Thomas had mentioned. Another text. Also, love, there's something you should know about your brother's death. Something I didn't tell you before. What? He wasn't investigating the trafficking ring when he died. He was trying to escape it. They had him, Sarah. They'd already taken him. He died trying to get away. The world tilted. Sarah stopped walking, her hand pressed against her mouth. Are you saying... I'm saying Eli was taken 6 months ago. And somewhere out there, he might still be alive. Sarah's eyes flashed silver, then red, then something in between. In her chest, something ancient and terrible unfurled its wings. She typed 3 words. Find him. Now. Then she turned back toward the pack house. Toward Cain and the council and all the lies they'd been telling themselves. Her brother was alive, which meant someone in Shadow Peak had been lying about his death. And Sarah was going to burn down the world to find out who. Chapter 3. Blood on the Snow. The gamekeeper's cottage smelled like dust and abandonment. Sarah stood in the center of the single room, watching Cain inspect the windows with unnecessary thoroughness, and tried not to remember the last time they'd been alone together. 3 years ago, in his bedroom, the night before he destroyed her. It's secure, Cain said finally, not looking at her. I'll have someone bring supplies, food, clothes. I don't need your charity. It's not charity, it's practical. He turned to face her, his amber eyes unreadable. The council assigned me as your handler. That means wherever you go, I go. We might as well not kill each other over basic necessities. Sarah laughed, sharp and bitter. Handler. Like I'm a weapon that needs controlling. Aren't you? The question hung between them. Sarah moved to the window, looking out at the woods that stretched toward pack territory. I'm a tool, Cain, a very sharp one. Whether I'm a weapon depends on who's holding me. And right now, that's the council. Right now, she agreed, that's the council. Cain was quiet for a long moment. Then, Morgana's text, about Eli being alive. Do you believe it? Sarah's hands tightened on the windowsill. She'd shown him the message on the walk over, partly because she needed his resources, partly because some self-destructive part of her wanted to see his reaction. He'd looked like she'd gutted him. Morgana doesn't lie to me, Sarah said quietly. She doesn't have to. I'm already bound to her service. But if Eli's alive, why stage his death? Why go through the memorial, the burial? Kane stopped. Unless there was no body. Sarah turned to face him. Was there? Kane's expression shifted. I didn't see it. The coffin was closed. Marcus, my beta Marcus, said the hunting accident was too brutal, that we shouldn't remember Eli that way. Convenient. Sarah, if I'd known, you'd have what? Her voice was soft, dangerous. Cared? Investigated? Or would you have just accepted what your trusted advisors told you and moved on? Kane flinched. That's not fair. Fair? Sarah's laugh was hollow. You want to talk about fair? My brother might be alive, Kane. Alive and suffering while this pack buried an empty coffin and moved on with their lives. While you moved on. While everyone just forgot about the little Omega who wasn't worth saving. I never forgot about you. The words came out raw. Not for one fucking day. No? Sarah stepped closer, her eyes flashing silver. Then why did it take me coming back for you to question anything? Why didn't you investigate when I disappeared? Why didn't you wonder if maybe, just maybe, the girl you threw away might need help? Because you rejected the bond, too. Kane's voice rose. When I severed it, you didn't fight back. You just took it and left. What was I supposed to think? You were supposed to think that maybe I was too broken to fight. That maybe having my mate publicly humiliate me and my Luna tear me apart was enough damage for one night. Sarah's hands were shaking. You were supposed to care enough to check. I did care. Not enough. The words fell like stones. You never cared enough. Kane's phone buzzed, cutting through the tension. He pulled it out, his expression darkening as he read. Marcus Greaves wants to meet. Says he has information about the trafficking ring. Sarah went still. Where? The old security outpost, north border. Kane looked up. Could be a trap. Definitely a trap. Sarah grabbed her jacket. Which is why we're going anyway. If Greaves is dirty, he's scared. Scared people make mistakes. Sarah, you're my handler, right? She smiled without warmth. So handle me, Alpha. Let's go see what your head of security wants to tell us. The security outpost was a concrete bunker half buried in the hillside, built during some territorial dispute decades ago. Now it was mainly used for supply storage and the occasional patrol shelter. Sarah's instinct screamed danger before they were within 100 yards of it. He's not alone, she murmured. Kane, walking beside her in human form while his wolf prowled just beneath the surface, nodded. I smell at least 4 others. All pack. You want to call for backup? And tip off whoever might be listening? Kane's jaw tightened. No, we handle this ourselves. They approached from upwind, moving through the trees with the practiced silence of predators. Sarah's apex senses painted a detailed picture. 5 heartbeats inside the bunker, elevated stress hormones, the metallic tang of weapons oil. Definitely a trap. Kane must have sensed the same thing. He caught her arm, his touch sending unwelcome electricity through her skin. We should retreat, regroup. And let them scatter? Sarah pulled free. No, I want to know what they're hiding. She moved before he could stop her, crossing the clearing in a blur of enhanced speed. The bunker door was steel, locked from the inside. Sarah placed her palm against it and felt the magic Morgana had woven into her bones rise to the surface. The lock shattered. The door swung open. Inside, Marcus Greaves stood with 4 beta enforcers, all armed with silver-loaded weapons. His scarred face twisted into something that might have been regret. I'm sorry, Kane, he said, not looking at Sarah. But she's too dangerous. The Council's making a mistake. Kane appeared in the doorway, his power flooding the small space. Stand down, Marcus. Now. Can't do that, Alpha. Marcus raised his weapon, a tranquilizer gun, Sarah noted. Meant to incapacitate, not kill. This thing walking around wearing Sarah's face? It's not her anymore. It's something else. Something that'll destroy the pack if we let it. Something? Sarah tilted her head. I'm standing right here, Marcus. If you're going to insult me, at least have the spine to do it to my face." One of the enforcers, a young beta named Derek, shifted nervously. "She's not natural, Alpha. What she did to Garrett, that's not right. That's not Pac." "What I did to Garrett," Sarah said softly, "was show him what real dominance looks like. What I'm about to do to you will be much worse." "Sarah." Kane's voice held warning. "Don't." "Don't what? Defend myself?" She looked at Marcus, at the fear barely hidden in his eyes. "You brought weapons. You brought backup. You planned this like a military operation. And you think I'm the monster?" "You're not Pac anymore," Marcus said. "You're something the witch made. Something wrong." Sarah smiled, and every man in the room took an involuntary step back. "You're right. I'm not Pac. I'm not Omega. I'm not even really Wolf anymore." Her eyes flashed red-silver. "I'm what happens when you break someone so completely they have to rebuild themselves from the bones up. I'm what happens when you leave a girl to die and she comes back hungry." "Stand down!" Kane's alpha command cracked like thunder. "All of you, lower your weapons." But Marcus was too far gone, too deep in his fear. His finger tightened on the trigger. Sarah moved. One moment she was standing in the doorway. The next she was behind Marcus, his gun arm twisted at an impossible angle, her hand around his throat. The 4 enforcers swung their weapons toward her, but froze as her power rolled out. Not alpha dominance, not exactly, but something deeper and more primal. Apex. "Drop them," Sarah whispered in Marcus's ear, "or I'll show you exactly how monstrous I can be." The guns clattered to the floor. The enforcers stood frozen, their wolves whimpering in submission. Kane started forward, but Sarah's free hand rose in warning. "Don't. This is between me and the wolves who think I'm an abomination." "Sarah." "He was going to shoot me, Kane, with Silver, in a confined space. With 4 witnesses ready to swear I attacked first." Her grip on Marcus's throat tightened. "You want to tell me how that's not execution without trial?" Marcus wheezed, trying to speak. Sarah loosened her hold fractionally. "The facility," he gasped. "I can take you to the facility, where they held the Omegas. Please don't kill me." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "Why would you do that?" "Because I'm not part of it. I swear, I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what. Monroe threatened my family. Said if I talked, they'd take my daughter." Tears streaked down his scarred face. "I'm not dirty. I'm just a coward." Sarah studied him, her apex senses reading every micro-expression, every elevated heartbeat. He was telling the truth. Mostly. "The facility," she said. "Take us there. Now. And Marcus?" She leaned closer. "If you're lying, I won't just kill you. I'll make you watch while I dismantle everything you love. Understood?" He nodded frantically. Sarah released him, stepping back. The 4 enforcers remained frozen, their wolves still cowering under her power. "You can move," she told them, "but if anyone reaches for those guns, I'll paint this bunker with your insides." They believed her. She could see it in their eyes. Kane moved to her side, his expression unreadable. "Was that necessary?" "Yes." Sarah didn't look at him. "They need to understand what I am, what I can do. Otherwise, we'll be having this conversation every time someone gets scared." "You're terrifying them." "Good." Sarah finally met his gaze. "Terror keeps people honest." The facility was 3 miles into Pac territory, hidden in a ravine that most wolves avoided due to unstable ground. Marcus led them to a concealed entrance, a metal hatch covered by brush and dirt. "Down there," he said, his voice still shaky. "That's where they brought them." Sarah pulled the hatch open. The smell hit her immediately. Fear, pain, death. Old blood and older suffering. Her apex power flared, responding to the echoes of terror that saturated the place. "Stay here," she told the enforcers. They didn't argue. The ladder descended 30 feet into darkness. Sarah went first, her enhanced vision adjusting instantly. Kane followed, his breathing tight with controlled rage. The underground space was larger than she'd expected, a central chamber branching into 6 cells, each barred with silver-reinforced steel. The walls were concrete, stained with things Sarah didn't want to identify. Chains hung from bolts in the ceiling. A medical table stood in the corner, complete with restraints and instruments that made her stomach turn. Jesus Christ, Kane breathed. This was on our land, under our protection. How did I not know? Because you weren't looking. Sarah moved through the space, her fingers trailing over the bars. Names had been scratched into the metal, desperate marks left by desperate people. Because you trusted the wrong wolves, because... She stopped, staring at one set of scratches. E.W. Day, 47, still fighting. Eli, her brother's initials. Kane. Her voice came out broken. He was here. Eli was here. Kane crossed to her side, saw the inscription. His hand found her shoulder, and for once, she didn't pull away. 47 days, Sarah whispered. He was here for 47 days, and no one came for him. Sarah, don't. She stepped away from his touch, her power crackling around her like static. Don't tell me you're sorry. Don't tell me you didn't know. Just don't. She moved deeper into the facility, her apex senses reading the psychic residue of suffering. 12 Omegas had been held here over the last 3 years. 12 lives reduced to property, waiting to be sold. In the back cell, she found the worst of it. A wall covered in tally marks, hundreds of them, organized in groups of 5. Days, she realized. Someone had been counting the days of their captivity. Below the marks, a message scratched in desperate letters. Tell my mother I'm sorry. Sarah's power exploded outward. The walls cracked. The chains snapped free from their bolts. Every light in the facility shattered, plunging them into darkness broken only by the red-silver glow of her eyes. Sarah! Kane grabbed her, pulling her against his chest. Stop! You'll bring the whole place down. Good. Her voice was barely human. Let it bury the memories. Let it... No. Kane's hands framed her face, forcing her to look at him. No, we need this place intact. We need evidence. We need... Sarah, please. I know it hurts. I know. But we need you to hold on. She wanted to let go, wanted to let the rage consume everything, burn it all down until nothing remained but ash and justice. But Kane's eyes held hers, amber meeting silver red, and something in his desperation cut through the fury. Sarah's power pulled back, slowly, reluctantly. The facility settled into groaning silence. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Kane didn't let go immediately. They stood in the darkness, breathing hard, his hands still cradling her face. I'm sorry, he said finally. For all of it. For not seeing. For not knowing. For... Kane, don't. I have to. His thumb brushed her cheek, and she realized with distant surprise that she was crying. I have to say it. What I did to you 3 years ago, rejecting you in front of everyone, letting Lydia hurt you, throwing you out like you meant nothing. It was the worst thing I've ever done. And I've regretted it every single day since. Stop. Sarah tried to pull away, but his hands tightened. My father pressured me. Said Omega mates were weaknesses, that the pack would never respect an alpha with an Omega Luna. He threatened to challenge me for leadership if I didn't reject you and choose Lydia. Kane's voice cracked. And I was young and stupid and scared, so I listened. I broke the mate bond and told myself it was for the good of the pack. Let me go. I was wrong, Sarah. About everything. You weren't a weakness. You were the strongest person I'd ever met, and I destroyed you because I was too much of a coward to stand up to my father. Kane, let me go. He released her immediately. Sarah stumbled back, her hands shaking, her power coiling tight in her chest. You don't get to do this, she said, her voice raw. You don't get to apologize your way back into my life. You chose to destroy me, Kane. You looked me in the eyes and told me I was worthless, that I was nothing, that you'd rather die than be bound to an Omega like me. You chose that. You chose Lydia. You chose the pack. You chose everything except me. I know, And I chose to rebuild myself. Sarah's eyes blazed. I chose to become something you can never touch again. Something that doesn't need your protection or your approval or your fucking apologies. You wanted me gone? You got your wish. I'm gone. The girl you rejected died in the snow 3 years ago. I'm what crawled out of her grave. Kane stood frozen, something shattering behind his eyes. I don't forgive you, Sarah continued. I don't accept your apology, and I sure as hell don't want your guilt-driven attempts at redemption. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. You had your chance to be my mate, Kane Blackwood. You threw it away. Don't expect me to hand you another one. She turned and walked toward the ladder, leaving him alone in the darkness with the ghosts of her words. Marcus drove them back to the pack house in silence. The enforcers had already scattered, no doubt spreading word of what they'd seen. Sarah didn't care. Let them talk. Let them fear. Fear was honest, at least. It was full dark when they arrived. Sarah headed straight for the gamekeeper's cottage, needing space, needing air, needing anything but Kane's suffocating presence. She made it halfway across the grounds before Lydia stepped out of the shadows, 3 beta enforcers flanking her. Going somewhere, abomination? Sarah stopped, exhaustion and rage warring in her chest. Not now, Lydia. I'm not in the mood. Too bad. Lydia's smile was all teeth. The pack deserves to see what you really are. What happens when someone pushes the monster? Lydia, walk away. Kane's voice came from behind Sarah. This isn't the time. It's the perfect time. Lydia gestured to her enforcers. We're going to force you to defend yourself, witch pet. And when you kill one of us, when you show your true colors, the pack will finally see that I was right to fear you. Sarah laughed, hollow and tired. You think I need to kill you to prove you're right? You think violence is the only language I speak? I think you're a monster wearing my predecessor's face. Lydia shifted, her partial transformation rippling across her skin, claws extending, teeth sharpening. And I'm going to prove it. The 3 enforcers attacked simultaneously, fast, coordinated, clearly trained for this exact scenario. Sarah didn't move. Her power lashed out like a living thing, wrapping around the enforcers' minds. Not hurting them, not controlling them, just showing them what she was, what she could do, what she chose not to do every moment of every day. The first enforcer dropped to his knees, whimpering. The second backed away, eyes wide with terror. The third simply collapsed, overwhelmed. Sarah turned to Lydia, her expression almost pitying. You wanted to see the monster? Here's the truth, Luna. I could kill all of you without raising my heart rate. I could dominate your mind so completely you'd spend the rest of your lives as my puppets. I could make you watch while I dismantled everything you love, just like you made me watch my world burn. She stepped closer. Lydia held her ground, but barely. But I don't, Sarah continued softly. Because unlike you, I don't need to destroy people to feel powerful. I became powerful so I'd never be destroyed again. There's a difference. She released the enforcers from her apex hold. They scrambled away, not looking back. Lydia stood alone, her confidence cracking. The pack will never accept you. You're not one of us. I know. Sarah's smile was sad. I stopped being pack the night you tore me apart and Kane watched. But unlike you, I don't need acceptance to have worth. She walked away, leaving Lydia standing in the dark, and didn't look back. The cottage was cold when she entered. Sarah started a fire, more for the light than the warmth, and sank onto the threadbare couch. Her phone buzzed. Morgana's message was brief. The leader will be at tomorrow's gathering. Photo attached. Sarah opened the image with trembling hands. It showed Eli, alive, whole, but clearly captive. He was in some kind of holding cell, his face bruised, his wrists bound. But he was alive. Her brother was alive. And in the background, partially visible but unmistakable, stood Finn Castellan, Kane's beta, Kane's childhood best friend. the wolf Cain trusted more than anyone. Sarah stared at the photo until her eyes burned. Then she sent one word back to Morgana. Confirmed. The gathering was tomorrow night. Every pack member would attend, including Finn, including the entire network of conspirators who thought they were untouchable. Sarah's hands curled into fists. Her eyes flashed red-silver in the firelight. They'd taken her brother. They'd tortured him. They'd made her think he was dead while he suffered in captivity. And tomorrow night she was going to make them pay. All of them. Starting with Finn Castellan. Chapter 4. The pack gathering was held in the Great Hall, a massive timber structure built by the founders, with soaring ceilings and walls carved with the names of every alpha who'd ever led Shadow Peak. Tonight it was packed with over 200 wolves, all dressed in their finest, all buzzing with speculation about the recent upheavals. Sarah stood in the shadows near the entrance, wearing black leather instead of formal attire, and watched them pretend everything was normal. Cain stood on the raised platform at the far end, Lydia beside him in a silver dress that probably cost more than Sarah's entire wardrobe. Finn Castellan flanked Cain's other side, tall, handsome, trustworthy, the perfect beta, the loyal friend, the murderer. Sarah's fingers curled around the phone in her pocket. Morgana's photo burned into her memory. She'd spent the last 24 hours planning this moment, running through scenarios, preparing for every possible outcome. Now it was time. She stepped out of the shadows and started walking toward the platform. The hall fell silent in waves as wolves noticed her, the whispers spreading like wildfire. The Omega, the Apex, the witch's creature. Sarah didn't care what they called her. She only cared about one thing: justice. Cain saw her when she was halfway across the hall. His expression shifted from surprise to concern to something that might have been hope. Lydia's face went cold. And Finn? Finn smiled, pleasant and welcoming, like he had nothing to hide. "Sarah," Cain said as she reached the platform, "we weren't expecting you to attend." "I bet you weren't." Sarah's eyes never left Finn. "But I couldn't miss this." "Not when we have so much to celebrate." Finn's smile didn't waver. "Celebrate?" "Oh, yes." Sarah pulled out her phone, held it up so the screen was visible to everyone nearby. "I got the most interesting photo last night, from a very reliable source." She swiped to Morgana's image. The hall's murmur grew louder as wolves craned to see. Cain leaned forward, his face draining of color. "Is that my brother, alive?" Sarah's voice carried through the hall, amplified by Apex power. "In captivity, being held by the trafficking ring we've been investigating." She zoomed in on the background figure. "And that, right there, is your trusted beta, your childhood friend, your second in command." Finn's smile finally cracked. "That's clearly doctored. Sarah, I understand you're grieving, but making wild accusations, is that Eli?" Cain's voice was barely audible. "Finn, is that my—" He couldn't finish. "It's a fake, Cain. She's working with a witch. They can fabricate anything." But Finn's eyes had gone cold, calculating. Sarah could see him running through escape routes, contingencies, lies. "Funny thing about witches," Sarah said conversationally. "They can't lie in photographs. It's a magic thing. The image might not tell the whole truth, but what it shows is real." She pocketed her phone. "Eli is alive. He's been held captive for 6 months while this pack mourned an empty coffin, and Finn Castellan is the one who put him there." The hall erupted. Shouts, denials, accusations flying from all directions. Finn backed toward the platform's edge, but Cain's hand shot out, gripping his shoulder with crushing force. "Tell me she's lying." Cain's voice was raw. "Tell me this is some kind of mistake." Finn met his alpha's eyes, and something shifted behind them. A coldness that had probably always been there, just hidden beneath layers of false friendship. "Would you even believe me if I did?" "Finn." "You were always so easy, Cain." Finn's pleasant mask shattered completely. So trusting. So convinced that loyalty mattered more than power. He shoved Cain's hand away, his own alpha power flaring. "I've been running circles around you for years." The hall went deathly silent. "It was you." Kane's voice broke. "The trafficking, the facility, Eli, all of it." "Not all of it. I had help." Finn glanced at Marcus Greaves, who stood frozen near the back. "Though some of my associates were more cowardly than others." "Why?" The question came out as a growl. "These are our people, Finn. Our pack. How could you—" "Our pack?" Finn laughed, harsh and bitter. "Your pack, maybe. Your inheritance. Your birthright. Do you know what it's like being second best your entire life? Being the loyal beta while you get all the glory?" His eyes flashed. "I made a deal 5 years ago with Konstantin Volkov. Omega Wolves in exchange for territory and power of my own. A pack of my own. Everything you took for granted handed to me." Sarah felt sick. Not because of Finn's confession. She'd already known the truth. But because of the casual way he discussed selling people like livestock. "Eli found out," Kane said. "It wasn't a question. The boy was clever, too clever, started asking questions, following trails." Finn shrugged. "I couldn't let him expose everything, so I had him taken. Figured Volkov could use a strong young Omega. Might fetch a good price." Kane moved so fast Sarah barely tracked it. One moment he was standing still. The next, Finn was on the ground with Kane's hand around his throat. "You murdered my—" Kane couldn't say it. He was 20 years old. He trusted you. He was a loose end. Finn struggled, but Kane's grip was iron. "Just like his sister should have been. That's why I pushed you to reject her, you know. Convinced your father she was a weakness. Because a bonded Omega mate with Sarah's instincts? She would have sniffed out my operation in months." Sarah's power flared, silver-red light filling the hall. Every wolf dropped their eyes except Finn and Kane, locked in their fatal embrace. "You orchestrated my rejection." Sarah's voice was death quiet. "You took away my mate, my pack, my life, so you could keep selling Omegas to vampires. It was necessary." Finn's eyes met hers, unrepentant. "You were an obstacle. Kane needed a Luna who wouldn't ask questions. Lydia was perfect, ambitious enough to look the other way if it meant status." Lydia made a strangled sound. I never knew." "Didn't you?" Finn smiled at her. "All those Omegas who ran away while you were Luna? You never once questioned it? Never wondered why I was always volunteering to track them down and always came back empty-handed?" Kane's grip tightened. "Enough. Finn Castellan, by the authority vested in me as Alpha of Shadow Peak, I strip you of your rank, your pack bonds, and your right to die with honor." His voice carried through the hall. Formal and final. "You are hereby sentenced to the blood trials. The families of your victims will have their justice." "The blood trials?" Finn's laugh was jagged. "You think that matters? Volkov is coming, Kane. In 3 days he's bringing his entire coven to retrieve his property and eliminate everyone who knows about the trafficking ring. You, the council, the pack." His eyes found Sarah. "And especially you, little Apex. Volkov doesn't like it when people interfere with his business." "Then let him come." Sarah stepped onto the platform, her power radiating like heat. "I've been hunting his network for 3 years. I know his operations, his weaknesses, his ego. He thinks wolves are easy prey. Let's show him what happens when prey fights back." "Sarah, no." Kane released Finn, turning to face her. "You don't have to fight for us. Not after what we did to you." "I'm not fighting for you." Sarah's gaze swept the hall, meeting the eyes of wolves she'd once known. Some friendly, some hostile, all uncertain. "I'm fighting because my brother is still out there. Because there are still Omegas in captivity. Because Volkov thinks he can walk into pack territory and take whatever he wants." Her eyes flashed. "He's wrong." Elder Catherine stood from her seat in the gallery. "If Finn speaks true about this vampire lord's plans, we need to evacuate the vulnerable, the children, the elderly." "No evacuations." Sarah cut her off. That's what Volkov expects. He wants us scattered, panicking. Instead, we're going to fortify. We're going to prepare, and when he comes... Her smile was all teeth. We're going to end him. You can't know we'll win, Lydia said, her voice shaking. Vampires are arrogant, overconfident, unused to organized resistance. Sarah turned to Kane. I need full authority, no questions, no second guessing. If I'm going to save this pack, I need you to trust me completely. Kane stared at her for a long moment. Then, to the shock of everyone watching, he dropped to one knee. Not in submission. Alphas didn't submit. But in something more profound. Supplication. Please. The word came out broken. Save my pack, not for me, for the wolves who had nothing to do with any of this, for the children who'll die if Volkov attacks, for... His voice cracked. For Eli, help me bring him home. The hall held its breath. Sarah looked down at Kane, proud, powerful Kane, kneeling before her in front of his entire pack, offering her everything he was in exchange for their survival. She should have felt triumphant, vindicated. Instead, she just felt tired. Get up, she said quietly. Sarah, I said get up, Kane. She waited until he rose, his amber eyes meeting her silver ones. I'll stay, I'll fight, I'll save your pack. She stepped closer, her voice dropping so only he could hear. But when this is over, you're going to reject Lydia, publicly, the same way you rejected me. Kane's throat worked. Sarah, and you're going to reinstate my family's name and honor in pack history. My father's service, my mother's sacrifice, Eli's courage, all of it. You're going to make sure every wolf in Shadowpeak knows what the Winters family gave to this pack. Done. I'm not finished. Sarah's smile was cold. You're going to live knowing that an Omega you threw away is the only reason your pack survives. You're going to wake up every day and remember that you needed me, that you begged me, and that I saved you anyway. Not because I forgave you, not because I still love you, but because it was the right thing to do. She turned away, addressing the hall. We have 3 days. Anyone with combat training reports to me at dawn. Anyone with defensive magic, healing skills, or tactical experience, same. The rest of you start fortifying the pack house and moving the vulnerable to the reinforced basement levels. And me? Lydia's voice was small. What do you want me to do? Sarah looked at her. This woman who'd orchestrated so much of her suffering, who'd torn her apart in front of the pack, who'd taken everything Sarah had once wanted, and all she felt was pity. Stay out of my way, Sarah said simply. That's all I need from you. She walked off the platform, through the parting crowd, heading for the door. Behind her she heard Kane giving orders, his alpha voice strong despite everything that had just shattered. Outside, the night air was cold and clean. Sarah breathed it in, letting it steady her. Her phone buzzed. Morgana. Well done. Though you're being foolish, staying to help them. Maybe, Sarah typed back, but it's what Eli would want. Your brother would want you alive. Then I'd better not die. Sarah pocketed the phone and started toward the old training grounds. She had 3 days to turn a pack of complacent wolves into an army capable of standing against a vampire lord and his coven. 3 days to prepare for war. 3 days to figure out how to save the pack that had destroyed her, led by the man who'd broken her heart. She was probably going to regret this. But as she reached the training grounds and saw the first volunteers already gathering, young wolves, old warriors, mothers with fierce eyes, Sarah realized something. Maybe she wasn't just fighting for Eli. Maybe she wasn't even fighting for justice. Maybe she was fighting because, despite everything, some small part of her still believed the pack was worth saving, even if she'd never be part of it again. Inside the great hall, Kane watched Sarah disappear into the night. Finn lay restrained at his feet, stripped of rank and power, awaiting the blood trials. Lydia stood frozen on the platform, her face pale. The pack murmured around them, uncertainty thick in the air. Alpha! Elder Catherine approached, her expression grave. What Sarah said about reinstating the Winters family name, Will be done. Kane's voice was final. Everything she asked for, everything she deserves. And Lydia? Kane looked at his chosen mate, the woman he'd picked over his true mate, the Luna who'd either been complicit in Finn's crimes or too blind to see them. Either way, the result was the same. After the battle, he said quietly, I'll honor Sarah's request. The rejection will be public. Lydia will have the choice of staying in the pack as a regular member or leaving with honor and a settlement. Lydia's breath hitched. Kane, please. You knew. His voice wasn't accusatory, just tired. Maybe not the details, but you knew something was wrong. And you chose not to see it because seeing it would have cost you status. I didn't. But the lie died in her throat. Because he was right. Some part of her had always known Finn was dirty. She'd just chosen her position over the truth. I'm not angry, Kane said, and he meant it. I'm just done. With the lies, with the politics, with pretending this was ever going to work. He turned to face his pack, his fractured, frightened, desperate pack. We have 3 days, he said, his alpha voice carrying to every corner. 3 days to prepare for the fight of our lives. But we're not facing it alone. We have Sarah Winters, an apex who's fought this enemy before and won, an Omega who's stronger than any alpha in this room, a Winters who's going to save us even though we don't deserve it. He paused, letting that sink in. So here's what's going to happen. For the next 3 days, Sarah Winters has absolute authority. Her word is law. Her orders are to be followed without question. Anyone who has a problem with that can leave now with my blessing, because I will not tolerate dissent when lives are at stake. No one moved. No one spoke. Good. Kane stepped down from the platform. Then let's get to work. Dawn comes early, and we have a war to prepare for. The pack scattered to their tasks, purpose replacing panic. Kane stood alone in the emptying hall, staring at the door Sarah had walked through. Marcus approached cautiously. Alpha, do you think she can really do it? Beat a vampire lord? Kane thought about Sarah in the facility, her power cracking walls. Sarah dominating Garrett with a look. Sarah facing down Lydia's ambush without breaking a sweat. Yes, he said quietly. She can do it. The question is whether we deserve to be saved. Marcus had no answer for that. Outside, in the training grounds, Sarah was already organizing her forces. Her voice carried on the night wind, steady, confident, unbreakable. Kane listened and felt something crack open in his chest. Not hope, exactly. He'd lost the right to hope where Sarah was concerned. But maybe, if they survived this, he could at least earn her forgiveness. Or maybe he'd just have to live with the guilt. Either way, he was going to make damn sure she had a pack worth saving when this was over. Even if he had to tear down everything he'd built and start from scratch. 3 days. That's all they had. 3 days to prepare for a war that would determine not just Shadow Peak's survival, but the fate of every Omega still trapped in Volkov's network. 3 days for Sarah to prove that the girl Kane had thrown away was strong enough to save them all. 3 days for Kane to live with the consequences of his choices. And 3 days for Finn Castellan to face the families of his victims in the blood trials, a fight he couldn't possibly win, but one that would give those families the justice they deserved. The moon rose over Shadow Peak, full and cold and unforgiving. War was coming. And this time, the Omega wasn't running. She was standing her ground, and heaven help anyone who got in her way. Chapter 5. The Apex Rises. The attack came at midnight, when the moon was highest and the pack's defenses weakest. Sarah felt them before she saw them, a wave of cold malice washing across her apex senses like ice water. She stood on the pack house roof, surrounded by her hand-picked sentries, and watched the tree line turn black with approaching bodies. There, she pointed northeast. At least 50 vampires. Another 30 dark witches flanking west. And, her eyes narrowed, rogue wolves, 20, maybe more. Kane's voice crackled through the radio at her hip. I see them. Formation? Standard siege pattern. They're trying to divide our forces. Sarah's mind raced through the defensive plans they'd drilled for 3 days straight. Hold the center. Don't let them split us. Copy. A pause. Sarah. Not now, Kane. Fight first, feelings later. She heard his rough laugh before he clicked off. Below, the pack assembled in defensive positions. Warriors at the front, vulnerable members secured in the reinforced basement, healers ready in the converted medical wing. 3 days hadn't been enough to prepare them perfectly, but it would have to be enough. The vampire army stopped at the pack boundary line, a wall of pale faces and red eyes glinting in the moonlight. Then the ranks parted, and he walked through. Konstantin Volkov was beautiful in the way ancient predators were beautiful, perfectly designed to kill. Tall, elegant, with silver hair that fell past his shoulders and eyes like frozen amber. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than the entire pack house, and he smiled like death itself. Shadow Peak, his voice carried across the clearing, amplified by magic. I've come for what's mine. Sarah vaulted off the roof, landing in a crouch between the pack house and the approaching army. Her apex power rolled out in visible waves, silver-red light that made the nearest vampires hiss and stumble back. You have nothing here, she called back. The Omegas you stole are free. Your operation is dismantled. Your middle management is facing pack justice. Konstantin's smile widened. Ah, the Apex, Morgana Thorne's masterpiece. He took a step forward, seemingly unaffected by her power. I've been hunting your kind for 3 centuries, little wolf. Did you know that? Hunting the legends, the whispers, the rare few who survived the transformation. Then you know what I can do. I know what you think you can do. His eyes glittered. But you're young, untested. You've dismantled operations, yes, killed some foot soldiers, freed some prisoners, but you've never faced someone like me. Sarah's hands curled into fists. There's a first time for everything. Indeed, Konstantin gestured, and his army surged forward. Let's see if you survive it. The battle erupted like a storm breaking. Vampires crashed into the defensive line, their supernatural speed meeting trained wolves. Dark witches sent curses screaming through the air, hexes that withered flesh and broke bones. The rogue wolves, probably promised territory or gold for their treachery, tore into their former species with savage glee, and Sarah met them with the full force of what she'd become. Her power exploded outward, a shockwave of apex dominance that froze 24 wolves mid-leap. They dropped to their knees, whimpering, their wills completely subjugated. She directed them with thoughts alone. Stand here, defend that position, protect the healers. And they obeyed without question. A vampire lunged for her throat. Sarah caught him mid-air, her witch magic wrapping around his body like chains. She slammed him into the ground hard enough to crack stone, then released shadow tendrils that tore through 3 more vampires before they could reach the defensive line. She's magnificent, she heard one of the witches breathe before Kane's massive wolf form ripped out her throat. The battle was chaos and blood and screaming. Sarah moved through it like a dancer, like death, like something that had never been seen before. Her Omega instincts warned her of attacks before they came. Her alpha strength let her match vampires blow for blow. Her witch magic gave her weapons that shouldn't exist in a wolf's arsenal. She was everything Morgana had promised, everything the trafficking ring should have feared. And she was winning. Kane fought beside her, his alpha power complementing her apex dominance. They moved in sync without speaking, covering each other's blind spots, anticipating each other's strikes. For brief moments, it felt like the mate bond had never been severed, like they were still 2 halves of a whole. But that was an illusion, and Sarah knew it. A dark witch sent a curse spiraling toward a cluster of young warriors. Sarah intercepted it, her power absorbing the hex and redirecting it back at its caster. The witch screamed as her own magic consumed her. "The children!" someone shouted. "They're trying to reach the basement." Sarah's blood turned to ice. She spun, saw a group of vampires peeling off from the main force, heading for the reinforced entrance where the pack's most vulnerable sheltered. "No!" The word came out as a growl. "Kane, hold the line!" She didn't wait for his response. Just ran, her enhanced speed eating up the distance. The vampires reached the basement entrance, started tearing at the reinforced door. Inside, she could hear children crying, mothers snarling in futile defense. Sarah's power detonated. The vampires exploded away from the door, their bodies slamming into trees hard enough to shatter wood. One tried to rise. Sarah was there, her hand around his throat, her eyes burning red-silver. Wrong. Choice. She crushed his windpipe, let him drop, and turned to the others. "Come near those children again, and I'll make you beg for death before I grant it." They believed her. She could see it in their eyes, that moment of pure terror when a predator realizes it's become prey. Then Constantine's voice cut through the chaos, calm and amused. "Impressive, but you're spreading yourself too thin, little Apex." Sarah turned. The vampire lord stood in the center of the battlefield, untouched by the carnage around him. Around him, the fight was turning. Pack warriors falling, vampires overwhelming defensive positions, dark witches binding wolves with curse chains. "Your people are losing," Constantine continued, "not because they're weak, but because you can't be everywhere at once. You can't save them all. Watch me." Sarah started forward, but a wall of shadow magic rose between them. Not his, she realized. One of his witches, protecting their master. Constantine smiled. "I told you, I've been hunting apex wolves for centuries. Did you think I didn't learn how to counter you?" He gestured, and 3 witches emerged from his ranks, their hands weaving complex patterns in the air. Omega empathy, alpha dominance, witch magic. Individually, they're manageable. Together, they're formidable. But there are limits to what even you can do. The witches finished their spell. Sarah felt it slam into her like a physical blow, a binding designed specifically to contain apex power. Her abilities flickered, dimmed, constrained by magic that understood exactly what she was. "No!" Kane's roar cut through the battlefield. He was fighting his way toward her, leaving a trail of vampire corpses in his wake. But he was too far, moving too slow. Constantine moved. One moment he was 20 feet away. The next, his hand was around Sarah's throat, lifting her off the ground. "Do you know what apex blood can do?" He leaned close, his fangs extending. "It can grant immunity to sunlight. Break the curse that chains my kind to darkness. I've spent 300 years searching for one of you, and Morgana Thorne finally delivered one to my doorstep." Sarah clawed at his grip, her power straining against the binding spell. But the witches had done their work too well. She was trapped. "I'm going to drain you slowly," Constantine whispered. "Let your essence transform me. And when I'm done, when I can walk in daylight again, I'm going to hunt down every Omega wolf on this continent and sell them to the highest bidder. A little tribute to the empire you tried to destroy." He opened his mouth, fangs gleaming, and Sarah stopped fighting. Instead, she reached deep inside herself, past the alpha strength and witch magic, past the apex dominance and predator instincts. She reached for the part of herself she thought was gone, the Omega empathy that had once been her greatest weakness. It was still there, buried, protected, but intact. Sarah's eyes shifted from red-silver to pure white gold. Her power changed, transformed into something Constantine's witches hadn't accounted for because they didn't understand what Omega truly meant. Empathy, connection, the ability to feel what others felt, to reach into their minds and hearts and souls, the ability to make them feel what you felt. "You want to know what it's like?" Sarah whispered. "Being an apex? Being remade from broken pieces? Let me show you." She reached into Constantine's mind and showed him everything, every Omega he'd ever taken, every life he'd destroyed. Every moment of fear and pain and suffering that his trafficking empire had caused over centuries. Sarah didn't just show him, she made him feel it, made him experience every second of agony, every desperate prayer, every broken heart. Hundreds of lives, thousands of moments, centuries of accumulated suffering poured into his consciousness in seconds. Constantine screamed, his grip on Sarah's throat released. He stumbled backward, his hands clutching his head, his perfect composure shattered. "Stop!" he gasped. "Stop, please!" But Sarah wasn't finished. She showed him the Omegas still in captivity, the ones waiting to be sold, praying someone would save them. She showed him Eli, beaten and broken but still fighting. She showed him every family torn apart, every pack damaged, every life ruined. And then she showed him herself. The night Cain rejected her, the blood in the snow, the moment she chose to become something new rather than die in the cold. "This is what you created," Sarah said softly. "This is the monster your cruelty made. Look at it, feel it, know it." Constantine fell to his knees. Blood tears streaked down his perfect face. Around him his army watched in frozen horror as their invincible lord broke before their eyes. "Please," he whispered. "I can't. It's too much good." Sarah's power pulsed one final time, and Constantine's mind shattered like glass. He started laughing, high, broken, insane laughter that echoed across the battlefield. His own vampires backed away, their instinct screaming that their leader had become something wrong, something dangerous. One of them lunged forward, tearing out Constantine's throat in a mercy killing. The vampire lord's body crumpled to the ground, and with him, the cohesion of his army collapsed. Vampires scattered, dark witches fled. The rogue wolves, seeing their promised reward dead, simply ran. The battle was over. Sarah stood in the center of the carnage, her power slowly receding, and felt the weight of what she'd done settle onto her shoulders. She'd broken a centuries-old vampire lord's mind. She'd made him experience the suffering he'd caused, and watched it destroy him from the inside out. It had been necessary. It had been just. It had been monstrous. "Sarah." Cain's voice, gentle and careful. He approached slowly, still in wolf form, blood matting his dark fur. "Are you okay?" She looked at him. This alpha who'd thrown her away, who'd begged her to save his pack, who'd fought beside her despite everything. And she felt empty. "I'm fine," she said. "Check the casualties. Get the healers to the wounded." "Sarah." "Do it, Cain." Her voice was flat. "We won, but people died. They need their alpha right now, not a monster who breaks minds." "You're not a monster." Cain shifted to human form, not caring about his nakedness or the blood covering him. "You saved us. You saved everyone." "I know what I am." Sarah turned away. "Go take care of your pack." The aftermath took 3 days to sort through. 17 wolves had died defending Shadow Peak. 32 more were wounded, some critically. But they'd survived. The pack had survived. And Sarah had become the hero she'd never wanted to be. On the 3rd day, Cain called a formal gathering. The entire pack assembled in the Great Hall, now repaired and cleaned of blood. They watched in silence as Cain stood on the platform, Lydia beside him, though she stood apart, her head down, her Luna status clearly temporary. 3 days ago, Cain began, his voice carrying through the hall, we faced annihilation. A vampire lord and his army came to destroy us, to reclaim what they saw as property, to eliminate witnesses to their crimes. He paused. We should have died. By every tactical assessment, every strategic calculation, we were outmatched. The pack murmured agreement. But we didn't die, because one wolf stood between us and destruction. One wolf who had every reason to let us fall, who we'd betrayed and abandoned and broken, chose to save us anyway. Every eye turned to Sarah, standing in the shadows near the entrance. Sarah Winters is a hero, Cain continued. Her family are heroes. And I have been a blind, arrogant fool who failed to see it. He turned to Lydia. Lydia Monroe, You are no longer my chosen mate. I reject the bond between us, publicly and formally. You may remain in the pack as a regular member, or leave with honor and a settlement. The choice is yours." Lydia's face crumpled, but she nodded. I'll stay. Try to earn back trust." Kane returned his attention to the pack. "The Winters family name is hereby reinstated with full honors. Sarah's father served this pack for 20 years. Her mother died defending our borders. Her brother Eli discovered corruption that could have destroyed us." His voice broke slightly. "And Sarah herself saved us when she had every right to watch us burn." He pulled out a wooden box, ornately carved. "Sarah Winters, I offer you the position of Pack Protector, the highest honor outside of Alpha. You would have full authority to defend this pack, command our warriors, and ensure no wolf is ever trafficked from our territory again." The pack erupted in cheers. Sarah felt their hope, their gratitude, their desperate desire for her to say yes. She walked to the platform slowly, looked at Kane, at the pack, at the life they were offering her, and shook her head. "I can't accept." The hall fell silent. "Sarah," Kane started. "There are 12 more operations," she said quietly. 12 more territories where Omegas are being trafficked, where people like Constantine are buying and selling wolves like livestock." She met his eyes. "Morgana and I made a deal. I help her dismantle the network, and she helps me become strong enough to do it. That mission isn't finished." "Then finish it and come back." "No." Sarah's smile was sad. "I've found my purpose, Kane. I'm going to hunt down every person who preys on Omega wolves. I'm going to make them fear the night. I'm going to save the ones who are still waiting for someone to care enough to find them." She looked at the pack. "That's who I am now. Not a pack wolf, not a Luna, a hunter, a protector, an apex who uses her power to defend those who can't defend themselves." "You could do that from here," Elder Catherine said. "Use Shadow Peak as a base." "No." Sarah's voice was gentle but final. "I can't come back to pack life. I can't bow to hierarchy and politics and all the things that made me vulnerable before. I'm not that girl anymore. I don't want to be." Kane stepped down from the platform, moved to stand before her. "Then I'll wait, however long it takes, however many operations you need to dismantle. I'll wait for you, Sarah. You're my true mate. That doesn't change just because I was too stupid to see it before." The hall held its breath. Sarah reached up, touched his face gently. "I don't need you to wait for me, Kane." Her voice was soft but devastating. "I needed you 3 years ago when I was bleeding in the snow. I needed you when Lydia was tearing me apart. I needed you when I thought I was going to die alone in the woods." Kane's eyes filled with pain. "The woman I am now doesn't need saving," Sarah continued. "She doesn't need a mate who had to lose her to realize her worth. She doesn't need someone who'll always carry guilt like a weight between them." She dropped her hand. "I loved you once, with everything I was. And you destroyed that love. You don't get it back just because you finally regret it." "Sarah, please." "I forgive you." The words made Kane flinch like she'd struck him. "For all of it. The rejection, the humiliation, leaving me to die. I forgive you because holding on to that anger was killing me. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It just means I'm letting go." She stepped back, addressing the whole pack one final time. "Thank you for fighting beside me, for trusting me when you had no reason to, for being worthy of being saved." Her smile was bittersweet. "Take care of each other. Protect your Omegas. Remember what almost happened here, and make sure it never happens again." She turned to leave. "Will you at least tell me where you're going?" Kane's voice was rough. "So I know you're alive?" Sarah paused at the door. "Morgana will keep you updated. When we find Eli, when we bring him home, you'll be the first to know. And after? When it's all finished?" "After?" Sarah looked back over her shoulder. "After, I'll finally be free. And Kane, so will you. Then she was gone, walking out of Shadow Peak for what she knew would be the last time. Sarah drove through the night, heading north toward Morgana's safe house in Montana. The next operation was there, a trafficking hub disguised as a luxury resort. They had intelligence, connections, a plan. But first, she needed to tell Morgana something important. Sarah pulled over at a rest stop as dawn painted the sky pink and gold. She sat in the car for a long moment, then placed her hand on her stomach. She'd known for 2 weeks. Had sensed the life growing inside her from the moment of conception. An apex gift, Morgana explained. The heightened awareness of one's own body. A baby. Kane's baby. Conceived before the rejection fully severed their bond, during that last night when they'd still been mates in every way that mattered. Sarah should have been terrified, should have turned the car around and told Kane immediately. Instead, she smiled, small and secret and fierce. "You're going to grow up knowing you're wanted," she whispered to the life inside her. "That you're powerful, that you never have to bow to anyone." Her hand pressed firmer. "You're going to grow up free, and strong, and loved, so loved." The baby was Apex, she knew, could feel it already, the way her power recognized and protected the growing life. The way her body was changing to accommodate something that was half wolf, half magic, all miracle. She'd tell Kane eventually, when the time was right, when the trafficking network was dismantled and Eli was home safe, and she'd found whatever came next for her. But for now, this secret was hers. Sarah started the car again, pulled back onto the highway. The sunrise painted everything gold, and she drove toward it, toward the next mission, the next battle, the next step in becoming who she was meant to be. Behind her, Shadow Peak grew smaller in the rearview mirror. The pack she'd saved, the mate she'd freed, the life she'd left behind. And ahead of her, Montana, Morgana. 12 more operations to dismantle, Eli to find, Omegas to save, and a baby who would grow up knowing that power wasn't about dominance or submission. It was about choice, about strength tempered with compassion, about being neither fully Omega nor Alpha, but something entirely new, something the supernatural world would never forget. Sarah Winters, no longer Omega, no longer pack, no longer defined by what she'd lost. Just Sarah, just herself, just the beginning of something that would change everything. She touched her stomach one more time, smiled, and drove into the sunrise. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe, like, and share this video to continue listening to this type of story daily, and also to appreciate this community too. I would like to hear your wonderful opinion about this story. Please comment below.